This program, of course, is presented by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most widely read, widely sold, and respected wrestling magazine in the world today.
Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Podcast, Episode 2. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined again by Dan Murphy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to kick a little bit of a head cold, but other than that, I'm doing well. Glad to be back on.
We're here in the last edition, the second and last edition for the year of the PWI. We're not being canceled already. I don't think Stu's pulled the plug on us just yet. And we got a lot to talk about here in this episode. We're going to talk about the year-end awards, a spoiler-free preview, and maybe talk about who some of our own picks are for Best Wrestler of the Year, Best Match of the Year, maybe a couple other categories we'll hit. We'll focus on the Woman of the Year and also talk about the Female 50, the ranking of the top 50 women in wrestling in the current February issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And we've got a real treat of legendary wrestling journalist Craig Peters sat down and talked to me for a while. We're going to have the first installment of an interview with him. Dan, happy holidays. How has everything been for you last week?
It's been hectic but good. A lot of time with family, a lot of running around. So, no complaints for once.
It's the second week. The first podcast last week, I think, did pretty good. We saw some numbers on them yesterday. Feedback's been pretty good so far. We want to keep hearing from you fans. PWI Podcast at Outlook.com is the place to reach us. Subscribe on iTunes for sure. Check us out on YouTube as well. We set it up on YouTube so you can listen to the podcast there. And what do you think about how it went last week, Dan?
I thought it was good. I think that we were trying to feel our way through a little bit, and I think that now that we have, honestly, it was kind of the weather balloon, the trial balloon, float up there and see how we could get everything to work. We have a lot of guests. One of the great thing that we have with PWI is access to a lot of different people that we'll be able to pull in. But we didn't really want to put all of our eggs in one basket and try to get too big and too complicated with that first episode. So it is a very solid opener, I think, and we're going to get some guests coming up. The Craig Peters interview, that I'm really excited about listening to. I know I wasn't able to join in on the call the other day. How did he get in touch with Craig? Like, how did he get the, how did that come about, Al?
Good old-fashioned reporting and some help from Facebook.
Nice, yeah.
But I know you said that Craig was instrumental in you getting your start at PWI, right?
Yeah. I had already had gotten in touch with Stu and pitched some stories, and he let me do a little bit of work. But at that time, I had to send everything into Craig. And early on, the first couple things I sent, I actually had to fax over. Because it's before they were really using email. This is 97 or so. And then I would email everything directly to Craig. He'd give me some feedback on it, which is really nice because, it was nice to have a veteran like Craig who would take the time to kind of give some nice editing tips, and really kind of go through every piece I submitted and kind of walk me through it. Which is great, because he was a very prolific writer and editor and had done so much with wrestling, and to kind of give time and personalized feedback was a big help for a young writer like me.
Yeah, I could talk to Craig all day. It was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously he comes from that kind of glory day of the wrestling magazines. He was with the magazine, I think, from 81 to sometime in the mid-90s. And came into it not as a wrestling fan, which is one of the more interesting things. And as you said, a real journalist, a guy who respected the craft, who knew how to write first and foremost, and again came into it as something of a stranger to the wrestling business. And the stories he has to tell are just great. You talk about a fax machine. When he started, it was just typewriters, and I'm sure Stu's got these stories as well. But you think we have it bad sometimes. He talked to me about writing 6 1,000-word stories in a day for PWI. And I guess I think that was his record, but I don't think it was that far off from basically what he was doing every day. And you got to remember, they had, I don't know how many titles back then.
Yeah.
So, and that, again, you talked about interviews, and you're right. I mean, we should be able to get some really top quality interviews with the stars in wrestling. But I really look forward to talking to guys like Craig too, who have that connection to the magazine and a lot of the writers in the past. And we'll definitely get our boss Stu Sachs on before Law to share some of those stories. And obviously, Brock Lesnar is the cover boy of the February issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. We've got a terrific story in there written by Harry Burkett that really kind of dissects what it means to eat, sleep, conquer, repeat. One of the best stories I've seen written anywhere about Brock Lesnar really kind of getting behind the aura to the man behind all that. And you can check that out and everything else out in the current issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Pick it up on newsstands or definitely subscribe. It makes a great gift. Pro Wrestling Illustrated is the longest running and most respected wrestling magazine, now in its 36th year of publication. We continue to deliver fun, imaginative feature stories, in-depth interviews. The current issue has got a great interview that I conducted with Cesaro. I think it's 8 pages long.
8 pages, yeah.
8 pages long, yeah. It goes in, he's another guy who made some news last night. It looks like they're tweaking his character a bit. And I think he foreshadows that a bit in my interview, maybe talking a bit about some of the frustrations of early in the year, getting the big push, and it's slowing down some. So I think now's the time to check out that interview for sure. And then we've got our big signature, annual pieces. You're talking about the PWI poll, the report card, the promotional face-offs, obviously the PWI 500, the female 50, which is in the current issue, the February issue, we're going to be talking more about in a bit, and the year-end awards that are going to be coming up actually just in a couple weeks, I think. I think the digital edition drops January 9th.
Yes.
6 issues of PWI delivered to your door for less than $21. That's just $3.50 an issue, half off the newsstand price. You can get an even deeper discount by subscribing for 12 issues for just $39.99. And if you want to save even more, check out the digital edition. It comes earlier to your laptop, to your mobile device, to your computer screen. It looks really slick and bright and terrific. You get 6 issues of the digital edition for just $14.99. That's $2.50 an issue. I mean, $2.50 for anything these days is just terrific. I think I was paying $2.50 for or more for that for PWI 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's something you're going to want to pick up. And I know in a lot of places it's hard to find PWI at the newsstands, so there's nothing better than just having it in your mailbox. You can subscribe at pwi-online.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter at official PWI. Dan, I just talked about it. The next digital issue drops on January 9th, and it is the year-end awards. It's one of the biggest issues of the year. I think it's one that people definitely go and check out. Even if they don't read PWI throughout the year, they go to the year-end edition for the awards, for some of the photos of the year in review, the unofficial awards, which I remember as a kid reading on the train and just cracking up hysterically. And it's funny, I pick up some of those old magazines now and read them like waiting for those big laughs, and I'm like, I don't know that it holds up that well.
No, not necessarily.
I guess you have to be 14.
Yeah, but if you think about it, what we were looking at back then, like 87, 88, 89 with those unofficial awards, that was kind of like the internet snark and memes before their time. It was like, people kind of calling out wrestlers' little foibles or nuances in the magazine long before there was something like the internet to kind of post that stuff.
Yeah.
So really fresh and new, and it still is. I still, it's one of the first things I look at in the year-end issue. In fact, every year I look, I want somebody to do an unofficial award, PWI Writer of the Year, Dan Murphy, something. I'm looking every year. I've been looking since '97, for God's sake.
Why don't you just send it in yourself?
Somebody, come on.
I think as a kid, I sent in an unofficial award or two and just thought I was hilarious. I'd like to find those now, see how funny they actually were. And the Stanley Weston Award, which obviously goes every year to somebody, kind of lifetime achievement, named after our founder, the great Stanley Weston. And then obviously the centerpiece are the annual awards: Wrestler of the Year, Match of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Woman of the Year, Most Hated, Most Popular. and many more. And different than the PWI 500, which is our picks, the staff's picks. These are your picks. These are our readers. And again, it's a real gauge, I think, every year of where wrestling stands. And by now, the ballots are in. They're counted. The magazine's being put together. We're not going to give you any spoilers, but we are going to talk a bit about who our personal picks would be in some of these categories. And why don't we start with Match of the Year, which is always a big one. You know, I think, Dan, there were a lot of really good matches this year and maybe not any great ones. You know, and usually you look to WrestleMania for that great match. And there were some really good matches at WrestleMania. Certainly the two Daniel Bryan matches were. Yeah. But I don't know that any of them really jumped off. You know, that nebulous 5-star rating. I don't know that there was a 5-star match this year.
You know, I don't think there might have been a 5-star match somewhere.
I mean, I didn't see it.
But I guess that I think there were a lot of very good matches, but nothing that really stands out, at least in my opinion, and in looking at a lot of the results that came in from the ballots. There were maybe 10 matches that I could think of that got a lot of support, but nothing really kind of blew away the rest. I mean, there's a winner, so one was named. There is a match of the year, but it wasn't as easy to pick as previous years. There was no, you know, to use the old kind of measuring stick, there was no Savage Steamboat this year.
Right.
And like you said, now there may have been some great matches from, say, in-ring work, but didn't necessarily have the prominence or visibility that really makes a match of the year. You know, it could be a great undercard match at you know, there have been some terrific ones in the independent scene internationally, some really heralded matches from New Japan in other places, but none of them really had the kind of standout quality that a typical match of the year really has, or the visibility to reach enough fans to be voted for it.
Yeah, and even NXT had some terrific matches this year. Yeah. But you're right, and I'm a big believer that for a match to carry over to kind of to that next level, to go from a 4.5 or 4 3/4 star to 5-star, and when you talk about the 5-star matches in history, they are really, really special, and they're not just about what happened in the ring. It is about the historical significance, the stage, all of that. That's why you see so many of them come from WrestleMania, because it is the biggest stage. They are the matches that have the biggest build. So when you talk about a Sami Zayn, Cesaro from NXT, and they had a couple of really great matches. But again, and there's something to be said about that stage too. I know it was the first NXT special, the first live special on the WWE Network, which was a huge story in 2014. So that was an important stage. But, you know, you do look to WrestleMania. And, you know, the best match on WrestleMania this year was the curtain jerker, you know, Daniel Bryan and Triple H, which was the first of 2 matches, and almost by design was taken down a peg because it was the build-up to the last match on the show, which was also really good, but not as good, I think, as the first. So that's what kind of tripped WrestleMania up a little bit.
Right.
The best match I saw this year was John Cena and Bray Wyatt in the... Was it a Last Man Standing match?
Yes.
At one of those shows. I think it was Payback, maybe. One of those. Which I just thought was terrific. Again, what hurts a little bit was it wasn't a brand top-level pay-per-view, but I remember seeing it and just getting a real kick out of it. I saw it recently again with my kid. My 5-year-old loves that match. And... for a reason, it's just a whole lot of fun. I love the interaction with the Usos and the Wyatts. A lot of the near falls were real believable, even though it was, you know, Last Man Standing. I don't know how believable any of those get.
Right.
And even the finish, as much as it was a WWE John Cena pay-per-view finish, I thought it worked well. You know, better than taping up ankles to a turnpost. Every time there's a John Cena Last Man Standing match, you got to put like the hardware stores on notice, you know, stock up on the duct tape. But to me, that was, and again, I think on any other year, I don't know that it would have been a runner-up. It might have been. But to me, that was the best match I saw this year.
You know, and I'd agree with that. I think I would. There were some good ones that I saw. And to kind of make my point about WrestleMania or what we mentioned about kind of the prominence of the match making a difference, I know every year there are people who come up or I'll see it online or I'll hear it, how come this match didn't get it or this match is so better? And they'll often kind of like these obscure matches, you know? And that's not to diminish the match quality. And one that kind of comes to mind, it's not really obscure because it was a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, but I remember a lot of love for back in the New Japan Ring of Honor show in Toronto. I was actually there for that. It was the Time Splitters versus Forever Hooligans against the Young Bucks. And it was great. It was terrific, just fast-paced, incredible spot fest, great near falls, really innovative match. And it really kind of electrified the crowd. But again, the number of people who saw that versus the number of people who saw Mania, and again, it's a fan vote. It's not decided by the editors. It's decided by the fans. And with Ring of Honor, you tend to have these fans who see a lot of matches, and they split their vote between, a lot of those kind of undercard matches that they really personally liked. So that's the thing. Like, there have been a lot of very good matches, but I don't think anything captured the attention of the masses this year as it's happened in previous years.
Yeah. And there were a lot of other good ones. There were good matches with the Shield and the Wyatt, the Shield and Evolution. Obviously, Daniel Bryan. The Survivor Series main event, the elimination match that Ziggler won, was a terrific match. I think WWE named that match of the year in their Slammies. So, again, it wasn't that we were watching bad matches all year. We were watching a lot of really good matches throughout the year. But, again, maybe not that centerpiece, next-level, 5-star classic. Wrestler of the Year, obviously another big category, maybe the biggest. Another place where I don't know that there was a clear-cut winner. Somebody won. We all have our favorites. As much as fans wouldn't want to hear it, I think I'd give it to John Cena again this year. What was interesting about Cena this year was this was the year that I think, certainly early in the year, they did try to kind of back off of John Cena and tried Daniel Bryan, tried Batista. Obviously, they were moving towards Roman Reigns, and they positioned Cena as being that kind of star maker. They put him in from like the third to the top match at WrestleMania with Bray Wyatt. And before you know it, John Cena is back. Daniel Bryan is hurt, Roman Reigns is hurt, or just isn't coming along as fast as they want. And it's the John Cena show again. Yeah. And I think for a good reason. I just went to Madison Square Garden Friday night for their big house show, and Cena's in the main event. The reactions aren't where they were, pro or con aren't what they were a couple years ago for John Cena, but he is still better than anybody else in that company in terms of delivering the main event, big feel, major league performance. There's nobody better. And whether it was beating Bray Wyatt or I lose track of John Cena's accomplishments. Money in the Bank, right? He won the title at Money in the Bank. Had the big match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. To me, he had the unification match against Randy Orton where he lost the belt, actually. December of last year.
Basically. But he was still positioned as that kind of top contender at the beginning of the year and then to the end of the year, right floating at that, at that right on the verge of title contention throughout the year. Even though he was kind of scaled back, he was still the kind of go-to main event guy.
Not his best year, but I think maybe better than anybody else's year.
Yeah.
How about you?
I would go with, Daniel Bryan is the sentimental choice. He finally had his WrestleMania moment, won the World Championship, had the entire Yes movement behind him, but injury cut him short. I mean, he had a great 6 months, but it's tough to make that the wrestler of the year. Although it was a better 6 months than anyone's had this year altogether, I would say. Another sentimental choice might be AJ Styles, who left TNA, which had been kind of his comfort zone for the past decade, and tried his hand on the independents and internationally, landed in New Japan and became the centerpiece of the Bullet Club, and really kind of it took off. really established himself. Also, the matches he had in Ring of Honor. So it was one of these things where he left TNA, and TNA has really been, who knows how things will be once the new TV show launches. But the past few months have been really, really bad for TNA, whereas Styles has kind of rejuvenated his career.
Yeah. And you talk about Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan